Buonasera a tutte e a tutti. Grazie sempre per essere così numerosi al Festival Letterature. Questa edizione 2023 è intitolata La memoria del mondo ed è dedicata al centenario della nascita di Italo Calvino. La manifestazione è promossa da Assessorato alla Cultura di Roma Capitale, è curata da Biblioteche di Roma con l'organizzazione di Zètema Progetto Cultura. Gli autori ospiti di questa serata sono Jeanette Winterson, Katja Petrowskaja e Burhan Sönmez. Le musiche del festival sono composte da Teho Teardo e ringraziamo insieme a Teho Teardo gli artisti che interverranno questa sera, gli autori, gli editori e tutti i partner della manifestazione. Questa serata è anche dedicata alla vincitrice del Premio Strega 2023, Ada D'Adamo, che purtroppo non è più con noi. Invito a salire sul palco Stefano Petrocchi, direttore della Fondazione Bellonci.
Grazie Simona. Buonasera. Il primo impatto con Come Daria è stata una lettura, come di certo accadrà ad alcuni di voi stasera. Ho ascoltato Daria Deflorian leggerne alcune pagine alla prima presentazione romana. Non era solo merito della voce prestata al libro, la qualità straordinaria della scrittura. Questo era evidentissimo. La sua asciuttezza, la sua lucidità, capaci di raccontare la rabbia di Ada, l'amore di Ada e Alfredo per Daria, l'ottusità e l'insapienza di molti con cui Ada, Alfredo e Daria sono stati costretti a mescolare la loro storia. La sensazione ricevuta da quella lettura, confermata poi dalla mia, ma in realtà mentre ancora stavo leggendo, ce la siamo trasmessa tra di noi all'interno del comitato direttivo del Premio Strega. È stato più di un passaparola, è stato un contagio che ci ha reso felici di essere stati infetti. Poi quando Ada non è stata più tra noi, alcuni che conosco da tempo, scrittori come Lorenzo Pavolini e altri che conosco appena, ci hanno tenuto a dirmi che aveva saputo di essere stata inclusa fra i 12 candidati dell'edizione 2023 e che ne aveva sorriso. Il coraggio allora aveva già preso moltissime persone ed era un contagio che con tutta chiarezza, oltre a renderci felici di aver letto la sua storia, ci rendeva gentili, attenti agli altri, migliori. In molti in questi ultimi mesi si sono presi l'incarico di accompagnare questo libro che sta continuando a viaggiare per il mondo grazie a un coro di amici scrittori, dell'editrice che ha avuto il merito di volerlo pubblicare, Loretta Santini, di tanti lettori. Lo ha detto benissimo Ela Stancanelli a Napoli, quando è stato assegnato al libro il premio Strega Giovani da una giuria di centinaia di ragazze e ragazzi coetanei di Daria, provenienti da scuole in tutta Italia e all'estero. Questo libro è fatto di una materia dura e al tempo stesso fragile, ma è anche leggerissimo come un palloncino e ha bisogno di tutti noi. Continuiamo a palleggiarcelo in aria perché non tocchi mai terra. Come Daria ha vinto la 77esima edizione del Premio Strega appena poche sere fa. Un premio postumo come quello di Tomasi di Lampedusa e di Maria Teresa di Lascia. Un premio, come i due precedenti, a un'opera prima di qualità indiscutibile. Non sappiamo, proprio come per Tomasi e di Lascia, se Ada avrebbe scritto ancora. Possiamo supporlo e trovare in questo altre ragioni di rammarico. Ma invece dobbiamo essere felici, io credo, perché sappiamo che era stata una danzatrice e che il talento in lei ha trovato con la scrittura una forma diversa per rifiorire. Il talento è incomprimibile, ha solo bisogno di vita, come la vita ha bisogno di aria, di Daria.
Ho trascorso i mesi in attesa di te, lavorando con passione a un libro su teatro e disabilità. Dovevo pensare a come strutturare il volume, curare l'editing dei testi, scegliere le foto in un vasto archivio di immagini. Il libro raccontava l'esperienza di un laboratorio integrato che da anni coinvolge ragazzi con e senza handicap nelle scuole di Roma. In quei giorni leggevo le dichiarazioni dei teatranti, i commenti delle famiglie e degli stessi bambini attori. Componevo sequenze fotografiche di volti buffi e stralunati, di sguardi assenti o folli, di gesti minimi seguiti da azioni mirabolanti. La caparbietà degli operatori e gli slanci dei partecipanti mi convincevano, mi commuovevano anche. Restava però intatto dentro di me un senso di estraneità e di distanza. Aspetto una bambina sana, mi dicevo. Tutto questo non mi riguarderà mai. Pensavo che la semplice convinzione di non volere un figlio invalido, non saprei come fare. Non ne sarei mai capace, mi ripetevo con forza. Bastasse a mettermi al riparo da una simile eventualità. E comunque c'è la miocentesi, c'è l'ecografia morfologica. Da questi esami si può sapere tutto in anticipo e nel caso optare per l'aborto terapeutico. Qualche volta, quando ti guardo, ripenso ai volti di quei ragazzi, alle loro maschere quotidiane. Immagino che un giorno potresti essere tu a impersonare la sirenetta in carrozzina sul palcoscenico di un teatro e che io potrei essere in platea ad applaudirti. Penso che mentre scrivevo il tuo sguardo sghembo e ridente faceva già capolino dalle pagine di quel libro e che adesso anche noi facciamo parte di quella grande famiglia. Quando hai un figlio disabile, cammini al posto suo, vedi al posto suo, prendi l'ascensore perché lui non può fare le scale, guidi la macchina perché lui non può salire sull'autobus. Diventi le sue mani e i suoi occhi, le sue gambe, la sua bocca. Ti sostituisci al suo cervello e a poco per gli altri finisci con l'essere un po' disabile anche tu, un disabile per procura. Sono certa che questa sia la ragione per cui molte persone mi chiamano col tuo nome. Un lapsus frequente, un processo di identificazione inevitabile. Trascorrere ore e ore della propria esistenza negli ospedali, nei centri di riabilitazione, nelle ASL, in compagnia di medici, infermieri, fisioterapisti, famiglie di disabili, non fa che accelerare questo processo di progressiva sostituzione dell'identità. Non sono io, sono la mamma di Daria, anzi, sono la mamma e basta. Entrare nelle corsie degli ospedali significa ogni volta smettere i miei panni e diventare mamma. Così ci chiamano le infermiere. Non signora, mamma. Non più donna, non più persona, solo un ruolo, una funzione di te. Del resto siamo noi madri, le prime a chiamarci così. Ti prude? Mamma ti gratta. Dice Tatiana, sdraiata nel letto di fronte al tuo, accanto al piccolo Lorenzo, durante una notte interminabile di pianto. Ti duole? Mamma ti massaggia. Hai caldo? Mamma ti sventola. Hai freddo? Mamma ti copre. Ti brucia? Mamma ti soffia. Hai sonno? Mamma ti culla. Non dormi? Mamma ti racconta. Piagli, qualche volta padri. Nei bambini rivedo te piccolissima o una tua proiezione cresciuta in un futuro prossimo. Nelle donne mi guardo allo specchio, in loro ritrovo parti di me, prove di coraggio e momenti di fragilità in egual misura. Nelle coppie scruto gerarchie e ruoli, rapporti di forza e reciproche dipendenze. A volte quello che vedo mi fa orrore. Donne depresse, sovrappeso, aggrappate a sacchetti di patatine e bibite gassate, eternamente in tuta e scarpe da ginnastica, donne con gli occhi cerchiati da notti insonni, le braccia segnate dai graffi e dai morsi dei figli, i capelli che non vedono un parrucchiere da mesi, o all'opposto madri eroine, quelle coi superpoteri, truccate e vestite di tutto punto a qualsiasi ora del giorno, che non perdono un colpo, non mostrano il minimo cedimento. E poi madri iene, sempre incazzate, perennemente in trincea perché guai a chi mi tocca mio figlio. Erano così anche prima. E io com'ero prima? E come sono diventata? Non voglio essere come loro. Nelle sale d'attesa di fronte al dolore degli altri le piaghe si rinnovano. Il mio tormento è il loro, un moltiplicarsi all'ennesima potenza. I primi tempi io non riuscivo a sopportarlo. Trascorrevo degli ospitali interi a piangere dietro un paio di occhiali scuri mentre davanti mi passava l'inferno. Alcune figure mi restano conficcate nella memoria. Una ragazza in sedia a rotelle si morde continuamente la mano destra, mentre la madre cerca di trattenerla 1, 10, 100 volte, l'ematoma violaceo sul dorso della mano. Un ragazzino ulula a intervalli regolari come un lupo. Come deve essere avere in casa un lupo che ulula tutto il giorno? Una bambina sordocieca fa le pernacchie. So che la sua è una strategia per sentirsi, eppure non lo sopporto, è più forte di me. Come si può tollerare tutto il giorno quel suono così fastidioso nelle orecchie? Cosa farei se capitasse a me? Una coppia di genitori, lei intorno ai 50, lui più vecchio, una figlia adolescente, semisdraiata in carrozzina, il bavaglino gigante, il termos pieno di sbobba frullata, la madre, ai piedi un paio di décolleté col mezzo tacco, alterna rapide cucchiaiate ad altrettanto rapide puliture di bocca, il padre, zazzera di capelli completamente bianchi, dopo il pranzo la coccola con infinite carezze, distribuzione dei compiti, gioco di equilibri, che un nonnulla può mandare in frantumi. L'ho visto accadere decine di volte, discutere per una manica di pigiama infilata al contrario, per un cuscino sistemato male, per una flebo sfiorata accidentalmente. Quante recriminazioni premono contro la sottile pellicola del silenzio, pronte a sputarsi fuori come un fiotto di vomito, le notti insonni a fare da detonatore. Il nostro terzetto fronteggia il terzetto più anziano. Vedo noi tre come riflessi in uno specchio, in un tempo non lontano, in cui i nostri occhi saranno un po' più spenti di oggi, come quelli di mezzo tacco, zazzera e sbobba, lì, di fronte a noi. L'angoscia mi avvolge. Guardo il tuo babbo e so che anche lui vede noi, proprio lì di fronte, riflessi nel futuro che ci aspetta. Ci abbracciamo come due naufraghi condannati a sopravvivere. E poi ricordo Morticia e omino Michelin, mamma e figlio. Lei, sottile come un'acciuga, completamente vestita di nero, gli occhi bistrati, la pelle bianchissima, i capelli lisci, corvini. Lui, 8 anni, la testa rasata, gonfio di cortisone, seduto sul letto di fronte al nostro. Sta facendo i compiti. Ha un cancro al cervello e mentre aspetta di morire, lui fa i compiti. Non gioca alla PlayStation, non fa i capricci, non ascolta la musica, non si lamenta. No, fa i compiti col suo bravo quaderno e fa di tutto per non disturbare. La notte in ospedale per me è quasi impossibile dormire. Se mi va bene, a tenermi sveglia sono i guai degli altri, ma più spesso sei tu a stare male, ad aver bisogno di me. Il giorno sembra non arrivare mai. Durante uno di questi risvegli mi alzo dalla poltrona a letto e lo vedo lì, l'omino Michelin, nella penombra, di fronte a me. Si è sollevato a sedere sul letto e mi fissa con uno sguardo che non dimenticherò mai. Un piccolo Buddha silenzioso, una sfinge impenetrabile. Non dice nulla, non si muove, non sorride, quasi non respira. Non vuole dare fastidio, non vuole svegliare sua madre. Si preoccupa per lei. Tanto autocontrollo, tanta consapevolezza della propria condizione mi atterriscono. È una creatura ultraterrena. Prima di lasciare l'ospedale abbraccio Mortizia, com'è diversa vista da vicino. I suoi occhi sono chiarissime acque trasparenti, nelle quali si potrebbe annegare una volta superata la sponda nera del trucco troppo carico. Saluto il suo bambino bravo, educato, studioso. Lo immagino incamminarsi già verso un altro mondo. Nel centro del petto c'è un nido e nel nido un uovo bianco, il bulbo di un occhio, ma grande come un uovo di gallina, ma duro, durissimo. Mi ci posso avvicinare, provo a prenderlo con le mani, con la coppa della mia mano destra, poi con la sinistra, da davanti allo stomaco. L'uovo è la morte, il nido è la vita, ma sono solo pochi rami secchi, la vita che resta. L'uovo è poggiato anche su un piccolo cumulo di terriccio secco, quasi polvere, poca roba. La paura di morire è ogni volta che provo a prendere l'uovo e a staccarlo dal suo alloggiamento ormai del tutto precario. Un filo, come quello del dente da latte che da bambina si doveva staccare. E io, prima un po' spaventata per via di quel poco dolore, poi sempre più ardita e aiutata dalla forza della lingua, riuscivo a staccare quel filo, null'altro che un filo di bava striato da un'impercettibile traccia di sangue. È questo per me il morire.
Grazie. Buonasera Roma. Ehi! Bellissima Roma. Let's begin by hearing from Calvino himself. What we ask of writers is that they guarantee the survival of what we call human, in a world where everything appears inhuman, lacking compassion, without mercy, cruel, unfeeling. We hear that word so often these days all around the world, whether it's the politics of exclusion, as refugees are refused a chance at a new life, whether it's the built environment, out of scale with the human body, indifferent to our mental health, fast roads that rip up towns, hostile cityscapes with no places for children to play. Inhuman, the triumph of vulture capitalism that gives the most to the rich and regards ordinary people as units of labor or necessary wastage. Inhuman, the horror of war. And every day, the daily war that is a world war, the merciless war on nature, our seas, rivers, forests, soil, plants, animals, as we refuse to accept that humans are also a part of nature. And I have said nothing yet about the savagery that we inflict on one another, the mass shootings, the murders, the abuse of women and children, often by those who should protect them, by those who have promised to love them. And what is most disturbing about all this inhuman behavior is that it is done by humans. What can a writer do about any of this? What is Calvino saying when he judges that what we ask of writers is to guarantee the survival of what we call human in a world where everything appears inhuman? Calvino's first novel, The Path to the Nest of Spiders, was published in Italy in 1947 when he was 24. It always disappointed him. Set in the Second World War, it is a realist novel, the story of a young boy who joins the resistance. And Calvino enjoyed approving reviews. He was on his way as a young writer who could tell a good story about contemporary events. The novel has moral purpose. This was art holding up a mirror to life. And isn't that what art is supposed to do? Show us ourselves, back to ourselves. But Calvino realized that the mirror metaphor, art as a faithful reflection of what is, really isn't as simple as that. In his essays, Lightness, from 6 Memos from the Next Millennium, lectures he wrote just before his death in 1985, Calvino talks briefly about himself as a young writer and the mismatch between his own desire for language, for storytelling, and the social imperatives of the day. And the more he stared at life, the more he felt himself turning to stone. And then he recalls that in the Greek myth of the Medusa, whose gaze turns everything and everyone into stone, Perseus is the hero who succeeds in cutting off the head of the Gorgon because he refuses to look at her directly. That way is certain death. And by fighting her mirror image in his polished shield, Perseus prevails. So Calvino turned away from the neo-realist writer that others encouraged him to become, and instead he began to work with fantasy, with fairy tale, with myths, with invented cities, with characters who can't be easily caught, like the Baron in the trees, a child who climbs into a tree, never comes down again. And at the same time, he experimented with fictional forms that were shorter and lighter than either novels or stories. But this is not escapism, though it is an escape. In the same essay, Likeness, Calvino says, Perseus's strength lies in a refusal to look directly, but not in a refusal of the reality in which he is fated to live. And this is exactly the situation with the Baron in the trees. Simply, he refuses to act as others do. But this does not stop him from being a hero in the French Revolution, or a good friend, or a philosopher. There was no social media when Calvino was writing, or at the time of his death, 1985. Had there been, he might have called it the stare of the Medusa. For who is not turned to stone mentally, morally, emotionally, by the disconnected deluge of news that isn't news, of trivia, of conspiracy theories, of celebrity gossip, of the fight for likes and ticks and thumbs up, of the incessant chatter about nothing, the trolling, the trashing, the loss of privacy, the debasement of human decency. How do we protect our humanity? And more than that, how do we claim back a humanity that is more than disgust, more than contempt, more than money-making? Well, the Greeks had a lot to say about human values and how society should be ordered, about how to build the best life, about the tension between action and contemplation, between responsibilities in the world and the life of the mind. And philosophy, literally the love of wisdom, was a Greek export to the Roman world. And just as important for the Greeks, for the Romans, were poetry, theatre, myth-making, imaginative responses that captured the tense situations of war, of political choice, of the conflicts between family and country, of what we owe to the state and what we owe to ourselves. You all know, because you are Italians, that after the fall of the Roman Empire in AD 476, what we think of as the foundations of Western culture got lost or ignored for close on 900 years, until here, in Italy, I'd like to say Rome, but it was Florence, non ci dice, they began a movement so powerful that it shaped the West for the next 300 years. The refinding of ancient classical text. And it starts with Petrarch in the 1300s, digging out Cicero, held up a very different mirror to society. Here was another worldview, not God-bound, not religiously directed, not too concerned with the afterlife, but with life now Life as inquiry, life as possibility, not the rigid, feudal and ecclesiastical structures that had dominated the West for so long. And I'm talking about the Renaissance, as it came to be called, Rinascita, literally renewal. And we hear that word for the first time in Vasari, Lives of the Artist, 1554, that gossipy, blingy work of genius, supposedly about the great artists of the 14th century, the Quattrocento, Giotto, Michelangelo, Leonardo. You're Italians, you know them all off by heart. But also, significantly, a work that puts creativity at the center of what it means to be human. Creativity doesn't happen without inquiry and imagination. You can be taught the skills you need, but that's not enough. When we are curious enough to ask questions, not to continue with what is, but to ask questions, and when we're brave enough to answer those questions differently, that's the breakout moment. And at the heart of the heart, the center of the center, is the human scale. Man, the measure of all things. And that phrase is from Protagoras via Plato. But of course, we've come to identify it with Leonardo and his wonderful drawing, Vitruvian Man, 1490. And certainly, this is a study in proportion. And what could be more naturalistic, more realistic than that? But when we look again, we see that Leonardo understood the human unit as cosmographia del minor mundo. We are a fold-up universe, both containing and contained by everything that is. And this is much more than the human as a series of surfaces to be measured. Man, the measure of all things, is as profound, as it is spiritual, as it is mysterious. And it's what Calvino excelled at, us, at the heart of things. Because what he understood was the crucial truth overlooked, or do I mean mislaid, by the evangelists of realism, social realism, neorealism. A crucial truth that is understood in myth, in fairy tale, in poetry, in the nighttime of our dreams, in the longings of our days. And what is that crucial truth? You know it before I say it. We are so much more than what lies on the surface. We are so much more than what we do. Your curriculum vitae, your resume, your job, your house, your friends, these are clues, these are coordinates, these are signs, and sometimes wonders. But whether you are a hero or a bum, a king or a beggar, the center of you cannot be seen from the outside in, only from the inside out. And so we say, who really understands me? And so we say, I have friends and family, but I feel alone. And so we ask, how can I be known? Calvino's method was to take everything that he needed from realism, the attention to detail, its fullness of character, its refusal to flinch from ordinary reality, and then to ask questions that were out of the ordinary, and to accept the answers that he found as the basis for his language and for his storytelling. What could be more usual than an angry child hiding from his parents and maybe climbing up into a tree. But what if that child really did never come down? And what would happen if a story began and then went on beginning? If on a winter's night, a traveller. And what would it be like to write about one city, Venice, through the lens of all the cities hidden inside it? That beautiful book, Invisible Cities, is a masterpiece of multiplying microfictions. Calvino called it a polyhedron, a shape that is both continuous and fluid. And it is a Socratic dialogue between the emperor, Kublai Khan, and the explorer, Marco Polo. A dialogue that begins without language, as the two men do not share a language, and eventually returns to a conversation without language, when even though they come to understand each other perfectly, they return to their early method of using a chessboard to describe and discuss Marco's travels. Why should it be that stories like these speak to us and move us? It is because they pull us aside for a while from the trivia of what constitutes so much of what we call ordinary reality, and instead magnetically orientates us towards our reflective self, our questioning self, our dreaming self. After all, what are we for? Surely more than working, marrying, eating, sleeping, gaining power, losing power, dying. Surely more than being directed by faceless authority, whether of church or state or the bogus authority of the internet. It is from the Renaissance thinkers that we learn the concept of humanitas. Humanism that is more than compassion or mercy or benevolence, much as those things matter, but also a duty, yes, to develop ourselves through poetry, through philosophy, through a knowledge of history, so that tyrants don't fool us. Learning to speak well, to write well, so that we can argue our case. All this because Renaissance humanism took the view that action, the busy world out there, is just aimless and often barbaric if we do not develop our inner self, our inner world. We live in the outer world, of course we do, and of course we should. But it should be a reflection of the inner world and not the other way around. Do you see now how the mirror, the metaphor of the mirror, is supposed to be understood? The terrible thing is that our outer world is usually a true reflection of our inner world. Superficial, angry, self-pitying, seeking to blame others, refusing to take responsibility, lacking both compassion and creativity. Oh, my friends, there is no need to worry about artificial intelligence. Any intelligence at all in the way we live would be helpful. Calvino knew what his humanist ancestors knew, that it is the life of the mind, the creative mind, that we must develop. It is why reading is never a waste of time, why the arts and the humanities must sit at the center of what we do. And of course, science and technology are important, But our scientists and technocrats cannot and should not shape our souls or our hearts. How to live cannot be found via a search engine. How to build a good society is more than materialism and more than scientific progress. Never apologize for your love of language, your love of literature, your love of music, your inquiring mind, your creative spirit. And how can we, all of us, protect and nurture this human spirit in the face of a bleak and barren inhumanity? Well, let's close as we began, with Calvino again, and the final words of Invisible Cities. The inferno of the living is not something that will be, if there is one. It is what is already here, the inferno where we live every day, that we form by being together. And there are two ways to escape suffering it. And the first is easy for many. Accept the inferno and become such a part of it that you can no longer see it. And the second is risky and demands constant vigilance and apprehension. Seek and learn to recognize who and what in the midst of inferno are not inferno. Make them endure and give them space. Thank you.
the memory of the world. What is the oldest word that humanity created? obviously, it's not memory. If humans needed the word memory, that means they had the word forgetting before that. They created memory in the face of forgetting. Every tool that humans made, every picture they drew on the cave wall, and every song they sang were pieces to establish their memory. Because memory was not something spontaneous, but something created by consciousness. Odysseus' journey across the sea, the palace where Scheherazade was locked up, and the three realms visited by Dante were the palaces and the places of memory. What Novalis said about philosophy can also be said about art. It is homesickness. It is the urge to be at home everywhere. Existence is homesickness, but since humans don't know where their home is, they search, build, get lost, and search again. In the journey from Dante's holistic universe to Kafka's fragmented universe, art searches for humans' homes. And every home one arrives at harbors a journey within it. The sun rises and rises again every day. And those in the Decameron tell stories during the day. Then the moon rises and the stars come out. And Scheherazade in 1001 Nights tell her stories at night. Thus humans try to claim the whole of time that is both its day and its night. But where is the past in this time? In the light of day or in the darkness of night? While some books weave parts of this time, others try to grasp the whole of it, like Ulysses by James Joyce. Jorge Luis Borges follows the same footsteps and reflects civilization as the memory of humans. His civilization of memory is an endless library of labyrinths. When James Joyce died, a newspaper in Argentina asked Borges to write an article about him. In that article, Borges mentions his own story, Funes de Memorias, rather than Joyce. The character Funes in this story is the opposite of forgetting. Since he hit his head in an accident, he suffers from remembering everything and lives like a monster. In his novel Ulysses, James Joyce showed that he had a kind of Funes mind when he wrote all of the details of a single day for hundreds of pages. In this respect, Borges says that Ulysses is a monster. Memory is to remember properly. That is to extract the images of existence and to know which parts to forget properly. If humans fail to establish a healthy balance between memory and forgetting, knowledge disappears and the human mind is consumed by a mass of information. Dates, names, numbers, places, institutions, that is, everything invades humans' power of knowing and turns it into a garbage dump. And then humans turn into monsters. In my mother tongue, the word bir means memory in Kurdish language. Bir also means to remember. And at the same time, it means to forget. And it also means longing for your loved ones. In addition, the word bir means a water well in Kurdish language. Our memory is a well, deep and dark. We throw everything into it. We forget them. We pull what we remember out of that well, and we miss everything there, including what we have forgotten. When we go to the bottom of that well, that is, to the very beginning of history, we wonder about the first word created by humanity. That first word was not memory, but it was not peace either. Because if the first people needed to create the word peace, then there was war before that. Was that word happiness? Maybe there was unhappiness before that. Was it reunion? Maybe there was separation before that. We are a civilization of memory, but our civilization is like a machine that doesn't work very well and often breaks down. If the power of our memory is not enough to find the first word of humanity, perhaps it will help us to create the next word for the future. Art is an endeavor to consolidate the power of the old and create the new. And in this endeavor, it has always encountered difficulties because some people have erected walls against memory. We know that memory is partly a dream and partly a nightmare. In 390 AD, the Temple of Serapeum of Alexandria and the Library of Alexandria were vandalized by a mob. And the philosopher and mathematician Hypatia was murdered there. Act of murdering someone or burning a book is an act of erasing memory. Memory is not just remembering, we know, but remembering freely. Plato clarifies the difference between telling the truth and explaining the truth in the face of oppression by adding the concept of parrhesia to the latter. Parrhesia means taking risk. You know that story as Italians. The Dionysus of Syracuse once had the poet Philoxenus arrested and sent to Corys to work at the mining area because Philoxenus criticized his poetry. But Dionysus released him the next day and brought him for another poetry reading party. Dionysus read a poem. Of course, everyone liked it and applauded. Then he asked Philoxenus for his opinion about his poem. Philoxenus called the guards and said, "Take me back to the Corys." Do you know what happened later? About 2 millennia later, Dante put Dionysus in Inferno in Divina Commedia. Risk-taking is a reality in the development of art, as well as in science and philosophy. Art exists through parrhesia. This is the passion for freedom and the defense of memory. Those who opposed this freedom destroyed books in order to destroy the memory of humanity. They burned the books of Avicenna and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. They threw Giordano Bruno with his books into the fire in this city. Because those who burn books and people always want us to forget. There are several ways of forgetting. Fear, weakness of memory, not knowing how to remember, etc., etc. As Terry Eagleton said, the Irish have to remember the past because English forget. We too have to remember the past because the great humanity forgets and enjoys forgetting, sadly. History is said to be the best teacher, but people don't seem to be the best students. In the 21st century, authoritarianism is rising again. Erecting knee walls between societies and bigotry is becoming the favorite tool in responding to the problems. Populist ideas are gaining ground in every continent, especially Europe. We are moving away from the dream of a peaceful world. Even the word democracy is taken for granted in many places and is clearly misused. We know the traditional methods of repression, imprisonment, assassination, and censorship are still everywhere. But new forms of repression are also developing and encircling our lives. Hate speech, fake news, and surveillance systems are on the rise worldwide. In his novel, 1984, George Orwell described the traditional methods and described societies destroyed by repression. Aldous Huxley, on the other hand, in his novel Brave New World, showed different methods of oppression and described how rulers turned to new practices based on the consent and the participation of individuals. We are now in a period where those two methods of oppression coexist. When we look at today's social media networks and the amount of information available for propaganda, we see how the truth can be blurred and replaced by a flood of misinformation. Many individuals and organizations are voluntarily becoming part of this process, spreading lies and conspiracy theories and almost greedily destroying what we call truth. We know that Big Brother is watching us. There is no such thing as private life anymore. Everything is in the data centers of corporations, and our every word is targeted by censors. They invade our memory, disrupt it, and change it, and then want us to believe it. They don't want us to see how truth is being corrupted and destroyed in a poisonous atmosphere, as new walls are being built between nations, cultures, and people. Authoritarian forces against the power of freedom are not confined to one corner of the world, but promote the most primitive forms of oppression and discrimination everywhere. Suddenly, we feel as if we have gone back in history and are in the political blindness that enveloped the world 100 years ago. We are losing our memory. If, as Rumi said 8 centuries ago, the mother of the rose is the thorn, then today's people have difficulty in making sense of the rose and falter in developing appropriate language and spirit for it. Nostalgia is longing for the rose by people who have failed to create roses from thorns today. Today we stand at another important threshold, a turning point in history. Either we will voluntarily enter an animal farm, or we demand the creation of another world. Oscar Wilde once said, "A map of the world without utopia is not worth a glance." Because the past is lost and future is inaccessible, the weakened human being longs for past and future at the same time and feels nostalgia instead of realizing an utopia. Humans feel like a slave of the present moment. The present is dystopia for them. If dystopia is in the present, why can't utopia be in the present too? People may think that utopia belongs to an unknown, distant time. Then we need to bring it to the present, because utopia is not a place that cannot exist, but a place that must exist. It's our ultimate dream to create one humanity living in peace and equality. Although we were born within the borders of a particular country, we are citizens of a world that opens beyond borders and walls. Our claim is quite simple. We claim the memory of freedom, the memory of love, the memory of peace. We write novels and poems to celebrate the value of the beautiful memory of humanity. It is our passion to have beautiful memories and create new beautiful memories for the future of humanity, because memory is freedom.
Dobry wieczór. Buonasera and guten Abend. Grazie dell'invito, è un onore essere qui. It's really a big privilege to stay here in the time when my Ukrainian colleagues are dying, when my Ukrainian colleagues are in danger. My beautiful colleague Victoria Amelina was killed 1 week ago, just killed by a Russian rocket. 2 weeks ago, she took part in the Book Fair Festival in Kiev. And people like you are in danger in Ukraine, and I want to dedicate this humble reading to memory of Victoria Amelina, and I will read my text in support of Ukrainian people. The fight for humanity takes place there. I read in German. Bergmann von Donbass. Das Foto schaute mich an. Die Nähe fesselte mich, erschreckte mich sogar. Ich wusste nicht einmal, wo Krasnoarmeysk sich befindet. Doch dieser Mann stand vor mir, viel zu nah, und blies mir seinen Rauch ins Gesicht. Ich wartete darauf, dass der Rauch sich auflöst und ich sehe, ob er lächelt oder grinst. Aber nein, er schaute in den Rauch seiner Zigarette und blieb wie in ein Geheimnis gehüllt. Die Fotografin hatte viele Fotos in dieser Gegend gemacht und darüber geschrieben, wie die Bergleute stur zur Arbeit gingen. Kein Gehalt seit Oktober, aber sie arbeiteten, denn Arbeit war Frieden und der Krieg absurd. Und wie diese Arbeiter die Normalität des Friedens wiederherstellten, nur dadurch, dass sie zur Arbeit gingen. Ich las Kommentare eines Gewerkschafters und dann die Nachrichten über den Krieg in der Ukraine, als wäre mein Lesen und Schauen ein Akt des Waffenstillstands, als würde nicht geschossen, solange ich lese. Ich war noch nie dort gewesen, in Donetsk, Luhansk. Ich schaute auf die Karte. Der Ort heißt Счастье, auf Russisch Glück. Dort waren an einer Bushaltestelle 2 Menschen umgekommen, rein zufällig. Zerbombte Häuser, freiwillige Kämpfer, Flüchtlinge, Feldzüge, Bilder über Bilder. Warum ausgerechnet dieses Foto? Die Augen des Bergmanns haben mich über Monate hinweg verfolgt, als wären sie vor einem Werwolf. Sie fanden mich immer wieder und immer waren sie direkt auf mich gerichtet, nah und fremd zugleich. Ich musste nur zurückschauen und sah die weißen Flecken, die mich beobachteten, wie die strengen Augen von Ikonen, die von irgendwo auf uns schauen. Wir werden von ihrem Blick erfasst, egal ob wir daran glauben oder nicht. Den Blick dieses Mannes konnte ich aber nicht fangen. Ist es Verzweiflung, Vorwurf, Weisheit, Tollwut, Glauben? Ist ihm alles egal? Sind da Tränen? Oder sehe ich etwas, das nur in dem Foto entstanden ist, die widersprüchliche Botschaft einer Fotografin? Die Fotografin fuhr regelmäßig Richtung Front, fotografierte Menschen und Städte und schwor, das sei nicht gefährlich. Sie hat die Serie "Fotografieren Sie uns nicht, sonst kommen Sie und schießen" genannt. Die soll ihr einer der Bergleute gesagt haben, als hätte er mit der Doppeldeutigkeit des englischen Shoot spielen können. Ist das die Logik des Krieges oder der Kunst? Das einzig Wirkliche auf dem Foto, das Einzige, was mir bekannt oder vertraut vorkommt, ist die Zigarette, unvorstellbar weiß und scharf. Man könnte meinen, die Fotografin habe den Fokus falsch eingestellt. Rauch überzieht das Gesicht. Das milchige Weiß bedeckt den Ruß. Hinter dem Mann erkennt man ein Haus. Er blickt mit seinen weißen Star aus den Augen und raucht. Dieser Rauch bleibt intim und nebulös, da dieses kurze Ausatmen niemals endet. Der Bergmann ist schwarz und seine Augen sind weiß. Aber er ist nicht blind. Ich bin es, mit meinem Unwissen, mit meiner Ignoranz gegenüber dieser Region, gegenüber diesen Menschen. Die Erkenntnis war schwarz-weiß, aber das Foto war farbig. Daraus blickte mir meine eigene Blindheit, meine eigene Ohnmacht entgegen. Ich fragte die Fotografin, eine zierliche junge Frau, ob sie so nah bei dem Mann gestanden oder mit Zoom fotografiert habe. Ganz nah, sagte sie. Wie nah, fragte ich. Er saß auf einer Bank, rauchte und ich kniete vor ihm. Eine technische Notwendigkeit. Vor Monaten bin ich im Internet auf diesen Bergmann gestoßen und nun ist er im ukrainischen Pavillon der Biennale von Venedig ausgestellt, als hätte er selbst Karriere gemacht. Nur wenige Schritte von der Arsenalbrücke entfernt, auch nachzusehen, hinter dem Glasfront. Man kann zusammen mit dem Bergmann rauchen, vielleicht wird sein Gesicht im gemeinsamen Rauch verständlicher. Ich habe mit ihm geraucht, als es dunkel wurde. 14. Juni 2015. Die nächste Geschichte, der nächste Text. Adoptierte Geschichte. Ohne Zweifel ist dieses Foto im November 1989 gemacht worden. Wahrscheinlich hat der Fotograf an diesen Ort mehrere Bilder geschossen, hat die besten aufbewahrt und dieses eine aussortiert. Ich habe den Abzug einzeln im Berliner Mauerpark gekauft, an der Stelle, an der die Mauer von der Bernauer Straße kommend scharf Richtung Norden abbog. Dort, wo früher der breite Todesstreifen lag, gibt es heute einen der größten Flohmärkte Berlins. Seit 2 Jahrzehnten wird hier Geschichte in Habseligkeiten und kleine Objekte zersplittert und verkauft. So habe auch ich ein privates Stück Mauerfall gekauft, als wäre es ein Teil meiner persönlichen Geschichte. In den ungeordneten Haufen liegen ganze Familienarchive, lose oder in Alben, die aus unbekannten Gründen ihre gesetzmäßigen Erben verloren haben. Manchmal möchte man gar nicht wissen, warum sie hier gestrandet sind und nicht mehr irgendwo in massiven Holzschränken liegen. Auf dem Flohmarkt sind sie zur Adoption freigegeben. Jedes Mal, wenn ich zu diesem Flohmarkt im Mauerpark gehe, überschreite ich eine dünne Markierung, einen Streifen mit Pflastersteinen. Jedes Mal halte ich inne, so normal ist dieser Schritt und doch so wunderbar in seiner Normalität, da es für eine ganze Generation nicht möglich war, ihn zu machen. Auf einer Metallplatte steht geschrieben Berliner Mauer 1961, 1989. Die Narbe der Mauer bleibt in der Berliner Topographie zurück, sowie das Datum 13. August, Tag des Mauerbaus, als kleiner Haken in meinen Kopf. Nach dem Kauf hatte ich das Foto in mein Bücherregal zwischen andere halbwichtige private Fotos gestellt, das von meiner alten Universität, das mit meinem Bruder und einem dritten mit dem eingerüsteten Bolschoi-Theater, dem Plakat Aida und mir davor. Und in dieser Reihe suggerierte das Mauerfoto eine Art biografische Teilnahme. Als es schließlich auf meinen Schreibtisch wanderte, schienen mir die Menschen darauf so vertraut, als wären sie meine unbekannten Verbündeten. Das Foto ist von der westlichen Seite aus gemacht. Das erkennt man an den Graffiti und hinter den Soldaten auf der Mauer sieht man die äußerste linke Säule des Brandenburger Tors. Erst strömten am 9. und 10. November vom Osten die Bürger der DDR nach Westberlin, dann sind viele Westler von der anderen Seite auf die Mauer geklettert. Im Halbkreis um das Brandenburger Tor herum gab es eine extra breite Antipanzermauer, die niedriger, massiver als die sonstige Mauer und ohne Rundung oben war, so dass man auf ihr stehen konnte. Am 11. November hatten sich die DDR-Grenzsoldaten hier auf die Mauer gestellt und erst am 12. wurde der Schießbefehl aufgehoben und die Soldaten trugen keine Gewehr mehr. Vielleicht sehen wir gerade diesen Tag auf dem Foto. Im Zentrum steht ein Mann, der sich gerade der Frau zuwendet und in dieser Bewegung fotografiert wird. Seine Augen sind geschlossen. Blinzelt er gerade oder blendet ihn an diesem Novembertag die Sonne? Die Frau ist der eigentliche Mittelpunkt. Ihr Mund ist leicht geöffnet, als wäre sie überrascht, in Eile, so wie auch ein Mann am rechten Rand des Bildes. Der Fotograf und der Mann mit dem Schnurrbart umkreisen sie mit ihren Blicken und lenken auch unsere Aufmerksamkeit auf sie. Ihre Augen sind durch die Sonnenbrille bedeckt. Schützt sie sich doppelt? Wer ist hier aus dem Osten und wer aus dem Westen? Meine Freunde meinen, dass in dieser Zeit im Westen kaum jemand Schnurrbart trug. Fassbinder hatte einen ganz anderen und auch der war längst gestorben. Die Frau sieht einer meiner Bekannten sehr ähnlich. Für keine Sekunde habe ich geglaubt, dass ich sie auf dem Flohmarkt zufällig hätte kaufen können. Ich fabuliere lieber über sie, über ihr Leben, ihren Beruf, auch über diesen flüchtigen Moment an der Mauer. Ob sie kurz rübergekommen ist, studiert sie Kunst oder möchte sie Kindergärtnerin werden? Ich denke an die mögliche Begegnung dieser Menschen in diesen turbulenten Tagen und erkenne zwischen beiden Gesichtern auf der Mauer das Wort Chaos. Die Soldaten im Hintergrund sind ohne Köpfe und die Menschen vorne sind ohne Körper. Sie zeigen ihre Gesichter in Übergröße. Und das ist genau, was in diesen Tagen geschah und sich auf diesem Foto zufällig wiederfindet. Die gesichtslose anonyme Macht wird geköpft, tritt zurück und wird vage. Die Menschen und ihre Geschichten kommen nach vorne. Sie schauen in verschiedene Richtungen gegen die geradlinige Logik der Mauer, auf der Suche nach einem anderen Menschen. Postskriptum. Ein paar Wochen nach Veröffentlichung bekam ich einen Brief aus Rom von Anna-Maria L. Sie schrieb, sie sei die Frau auf dem Foto, sie habe keine Fotos mehr aus dieser Zeit an der Mauer, nur jetzt das meine. Und sie sei unsicher, ob die banale Realität ihres Auftauchens meiner Fantasie besser keine Grenzen ziehen solle. Ich begrüße ganz herzlich Anna-Maria, weil sie heute unter uns ist. Anna-Maria is today with us. Und das ist it's the last text from the book which will be published possibly in autumn in Italy. Sarah und Raphael. Ich sehe, was vielleicht alle hier sehen werden, und das ist die Liebe. Ich sehe zwei alte Menschen, ihr zurückhaltendes Lächeln. Die Wärme, die auf uns übergeht, hat das Ehepaar erst für sich gehabt, aufeinander gerichtet. Sie haben keine Kinder. Diese Wärme teilt sich auch zwei anderen Menschen mit, dem Fotografen und der Journalistin. Kindlein, sagt die alte Frau. Dann sehe ich eins nach dem anderen, das Alter, die Armut, den Schrank, den Stuhl, verstreute Medikamente, adrette Kleidung, einen unabgewaschenen Topf. Typische Begleiter der osteuropäischen Rentner. Ich habe dieses Bild im National Geographic vom September 1986 gesehen. Zwischen den Artikeln The Intimate Sense of Smell and Invaders from Space Meteorites stand eine große Reportage, Remnants, The Last Jews of Poland. Ich weiß nicht, was mich mehr mitgenommen hat, der schlichte archäologische Titel des Artikels oder seine naturwissenschaftliche Umgebung, die für die Katastrophe ganz angemessen einen chemisch-kosmischen Rahmen bildete. Ein polnisches Paar, eine Generation jünger als die Menschen auf dem Bild, die Journalistin Małgorzata Niezbytowska und der Fotograf Tomasz Tomaszewski, geht 1980 für 5 Jahre auf die Suche. In dem Land, in dem sie aufgewachsen sind, gab es früher eine andere Zivilisation. Von den wenigen Überlebenden des Krieges haben die meisten ihre Heimat nach der antisemitischen Welle von 1968 verlassen. Nach 1970 gab es keinen einzigen Rabbiner mehr in Polen. Das Paar sucht Juden. Es war unmodisch und wirkte für alle verdächtig im Polen des Kriegsrechts. Kaum jemand verstand, was sie bewegte. Das Ergebnis dieser Recherche wurde erst im National Geographic veröffentlicht und später als Buch, das auch auf Deutsch erschien, Die letzten Juden in Polen. Die erstaunlichste Geschichte in diesem Buch ist Minjan von Lublin. In dieser alten polnischen Stadt, einst ein wichtiges Zentrum des jüdischen Lebens, das in den Büchern von Isaac Bashevis Singer besungen wird und wo die älteste Talmudschule gegründet wurde, findet Niesebitowska eine der letzten jüdischen Gemeinden in Polen, die noch Gottesdienste feiern kann. Dazu braucht man ein Minjan, ein Quorum von 10 Männern. Niesebitowska findet sie, diese letzten 10, alte, meistens einsame Männer, manche wohnen 100 Kilometer von Lublin, unter ihnen 2 Kommunisten und ein Getaufter. Aber sie kommen, um den Gläubigen den Gottesdienst zu ermöglichen. Sie brauchen einander, ein guter Grund zum Leben. Manche sind tatsächlich die letzten Juden in ihrer Stadt, wie diese 2 auf dem Bild von Vlodava. Wir sehen hier den frommsten von Minjan, Raphael Adler, mit seiner Frau Sarah. In Vlodava, 90 Kilometer von Lublin, haben sie ein eigenes Haus, in dem alles vermenschlicht erscheint. So wie sich Sarah an ihrem Mann lehnt sich die Pyramide aus Fernsehkarton, den in Plastikfolie verpackten Habseligkeiten und eine Decke an den Schrank an. Die Welt ihrer Gegenstände ahmt sie nach, zart und unsicher. Sie ist wie sie, alt und einzig. Dieses kleine Mysterium hat etwas Clowneskes. Die bunten Habseligkeiten, der Hut von Raphael. Es gibt viele Bilder in diesem Band, die schöner oder dramatischer sind. Die letzte koschere Metzgerei in Warschau, in der die Menschen wie Witzfiguren wirken. Der letzte jüdische Schneider in Lublin, der seine Tochter verflucht hat, weil sie einen Goi geheiratet hatte. Es gibt aber keine Juden mehr, trotzdem. Zygmunt Warszawa steht in der Mitte der polnischen Hochzeit. Dutzende Bauern haben ihn während des Krieges versteckt. Nun nennen ihn 100 Kinder Onkel. Der Vorsitzende der Lubliner Gemeinde sitzt vom Vermehrlicht aus dem Fenster beleuchtet, alleine am Ende des langen, leeren Tisches und liest aus dem Heiligen Buch in der heruntergekommenen Synagoge. Sein Volk ist nicht mehr da. Er ist Vorsitzender wider Willen. Sein Wissen reicht nicht dafür, aber wenn nicht er, dann wer? Eine von den 10 des Minjans möchte erst nicht fotografiert werden. Sie seien keine Affen, die vorgeführt werden können. Er möchte niemanden darstellen. Und das ist eigentlich, was hier deutlich wird. Es gibt keine Normalität für sie, die nun die Letzten sind und die ganze verschwundene Welt vertreten müssen. Dieses Bild bewegt mich, auch weil es hier keine Attribute des Judentums oder Zeichen des Verlusts gibt, weil es nichts repräsentiert. Nur Sarah und Raphael sind da mit ihren Familiengeschichten, die kein Wort und kein Bild darstellen kann. Wir werden von ihnen mit Wärme aufgenommen. So stehen sie. Irgendwo oben sind Meteoriten und hier der intime Sinn der Liebe. Danke. Grazie. Grazie.
Anyway, 4 years passed, and there I am sitting in my RA NYC BAPT, Roy Ayers, New York City, bachelor apartment, doing my thing, minding my own business. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the television, and the telephone rang. At that time, I had incorporated into my voice pattern what I call my Barry White approach. And I picked up the phone and I said, hello. There was no answer. I said it once again, hello. And this voice came on the phone. It sounded just like this.
Time went by and we both learned. Ooh, lonely nights increase our pain. Don't you think we should grow up? Let's rebuild our family tree.